Hello fellow humans and welcome to the balance changes of 9.1, and we're going to start off with the MX50B and FV4005 because this is one of the worst changes that have happened. So let's start off with the worst first. However, what is not the worst is if you like and subscribe to this video. I would really appreciate that. And the change we started with the MX50B, the change that happened to this is that it got more clumsy, more team reliant, and harder to play. That is essentially what happened to the vehicle. 4 shells instead of 3. Now, reload's longer and accuracy is worse. 3.6 seconds aim time means that even if you do have these 3 seconds intraclip reload, is that your shells will never be fully aimed after firing, which means that intraclip reload is essentially 4 seconds, if not more, if you want to accurately fire all your 4 shells. And for a vehicle that essentially has no turret armor whatsoever, that is essentially a death sentence. Let's play it, see how it goes, and as after that, let's look at the FV4005 as well. MX50B, it's worse now. That's just how it is. 4 shots is bad for this vehicle. And also the nerf in accuracy is also worse for the vehicle, because now you have 4 shells, but you're probably only going to hit 3. And if you do hit 4, you're probably going to get shot back because you need 12 or more seconds to unload if you want them to be accurate. Now, not only do you now have to have a longer time to unload, you now have a longer time that you're vulnerable while reloading, which is all bad for a vehicle that has no armor, because, again, if you have a vehicle with no armor, the longer you have to peek, the longer it is vulnerable, the longer it is very easily pinnable. Geez, that was lucky. And you see, I have to peek for a very long time. It's very easy for the enemy to just fire back, and the best way to unload is essentially not have any enemy looking at you. However, the best you do that is by flanking around. The problem is, with now this insanely long reload, you know, let's say you take 2 shots, you can't do anything anymore because, say, a leopard pushes you, you're dead, because your reload is 5 seconds longer than it used to be, and your clip is just a lot more clumsy. So, let's see what we can do here. On the convoy, nope. Now, the problem again is when you have a 4 shell autoloader, sometimes you only get 3, which makes the DPM worse, which is not good, again. Also another downside. The only upside is you have more damage at once available. The downside is it's more clumsy to unload, you're vulnerable for longer, you're probably going to hit less shots, you're going to lose DPM because you probably have to reload a 3rd or 4th shell. Sometimes you maybe have to reload 2 senselessly. So it is just a downside, a massive list of downsides accompanying with one tiny upside that most of the time isn't going to help you much. So it's a nerf, essentially, to this vehicle. And I wouldn't recommend getting it anymore. The T-System Heavy now is the stronger vehicle, undoubtedly. So, yeah, what do you think about the 50B? Do you also think it's a nerf? But I definitely do. Because it just makes it more clumsy to play. It makes it harder to play. It doesn't make it unplayable, obviously. But it does make it more awkward and more difficult to play, especially for a paper tank like this. And also having a longer unload than the 57 Heavy. 57 Heavy just is now undoubtedly the better one, where previously they were both like, one has the better mobility, the other one has the better gun. Now 57 Heavy has undoubtedly a better gun. So more alpha damage in the clip is not always better. You see, I have 2 shells there. Do I reload them? Do I keep them? If I have 1, clearly reload them easily, poof. But if I have 2, do you reload them? That is a question I have to ask yourself a lot more now. And that just makes it more awkward and more difficult to play. And that is the core of this change, essentially. That doesn't make the tank necessarily performing worse. It just makes it a lot harder to play, which can obviously result in it performing worse, because most players now are going to have a lot more trouble with this vehicle and going to have a lot more shells that go to waste that you reload. And that's just very sad. That's just very sad. It was perfectly fine the way it was. It wasn't necessary to do this to the vehicle. It didn't need this. It was fine the way it was. It already had its differences with the T-50 Heavy. You know, as in the clip unload was already longer. And the mobility was better. But the armor was worse. It had enough differences to the 57 Heavy already to make it stand out. And now, it stands out. Even more. But in a worse way. And that is, in my eyes, not good. It should be either one of 3 things have to happen to this vehicle. Get back to 3 shells. Undo all the changes. Poof. Go back. Probably not going to happen. 2. Reduce the aim time to 2 seconds so you can actually shoot the shells properly and that you're accurate with all your 4 shells. That you have a point. That you can unload it properly. Or you reduce the intraclip reload by a lot to 2 seconds. Then it is more viable as well. But its current state, I do not recommend this vehicle. And it's definitely in the lower half of tier 10s, and is definitely has been adjusted for the worse. And now, the 4005, same thing here. If you have a paper tank, and the paper tank gets the alpha damage nerfed, then that means it's a hard nerf to it, because the less armor you have, the harder it is to play, and then the more times you have to peek, even harder it gets. Now we go over the 4005, and again, this thing has already been the I could, but I can't tank of Blitz, where it has a great gun, but you can't use it to its full extent because it's an insanely clumsy mess of a tank that has no armor whatsoever, and every second that you expose this vehicle, you have the potential to eat 1,000 damage with HE. So that's not good, obviously, to be this vulnerable, and it's not great, and obviously making the gun worse is not going to help that, obviously, because now you have one extra shell, which means, again, you have to spend more time to unload it. You do have more chances to hit, that is true. But again, you have a lot of alpha damage per shot, and it makes it essentially more clumsy to unload, because sometimes you're going to have to unload, you know, one shell, and then you have to reload the entire clip again, because the downsides, when they change it like this, are bigger than the upside. That's the whole point. And yeah, I just can't aim. So that's the entire point. There are some upsides to it, but they're overshadowed by the downsides of what the bigger clip brings, especially if the alpha damage does get nerfed. And especially if it's a paper tank like this. So now, basically, get the 50, if you want to tier 10 autoloader, get the 50% heavy. That's it. Not this one, not the 50B. Now, AMX5120 has 3 shells. Why the 50B now has 4? It doesn't even make sense for the line, because the tier 8, like, the tier 8 has 3, tier 9 has 3, and tier 10 has 4, so it doesn't make any sense either. So, congrats, Wargaming, well done, basically. So, with this, I mean, this line never made sense anyway, with the Charioteer and the Conway and the Challenger being single shot and this thing being autoloader. It doesn't make sense. So, they made it even worse now. So, don't recommend this tank. I mean, the Charioteer is an amazing vehicle. This one, it's clumsy. And the way this tank is going to work, basically, only now is have your team fight the enemy, and then you have to swoop around and do damage somehow there. Because if you're the tank of contention, if you're being fought actively, you have no chance. It's going to be essentially the same with the 50B as well. So you're going to need an insane amount of map knowledge, more than previously. You're going to need more luck. You need more skill to play this vehicle well and to get the most out of it that is possible. As you can see right here, 268 was looking at me from the back. I clip him. That's how you do damage in a vehicle like this now. You know, you have to be a pussy, basically. And that's not great. And the 50% heavy can't, like the 50% heavy, you can just go for it. It has 3 shells. It has a solid reload. It's better vehicle now. It's just better because compared to the 50B, yes, the 50B is faster, but the 50B is a massive big baby that is very easy to pen, so that also has a worse clip now, basically. It has a bigger clip. Bigger isn't always better. Sometimes, if it's too big, it's gonna hurt. And that's the case for the 50B and also the case for this one. If they would have kept the alpha damage the same, it might have been fine, but that just makes the clip too damn big. So, yeah, it's not great, certainly. And I don't approve of these changes. The tanks were fine the way they were, but Wargaming thought not. So, I'm not a fan of these changes. I very much disapprove of them. I hope they will get reverted. Unfortunately, it probably won't be. So, I never played the 4005 much, but I certainly won't play the 50B now anymore. But what do you think? Are you going to play them? Do you think they got better? Do you think they got worse? Put it in the comments. And obviously, maybe your opinion is different. That's allowed. You know, I'm not an unfathomable guy that's always right. So, what do you think? Put it in the comments. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. See you next one. Goodbye.